That's awesome.
I enjoy having breakfast in bed. I like waking up to the smell of bacon, sue me. And since I don't have a butler, I have to do it myself.
That's me. That's back. Oh wait, sorry. I don't know what the hell was going on there. I think Vince was trying to hijack the stream. Anyway, guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is the Osnator, and well, this is the channel. Today is just gonna be a Raw review. It's gonna start the weekly Raw SmackDown reviews. So the way I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna do the Raw reviews on Tuesday, mainly for the simple fact that Monday Night Raw is too goddamn long. I mean, Raw is 3 hours long. It starts at 8 o'clock, ends at 11 o'clock. I don't want to do. I don't want to fucking stay up to like 12 o'clock doing a Raw review. I mean, Raw kind of is too long and it's boring as it is. You know, I don't want to. Not neck towards you guys. I love you all, but like I said, it's too damn long. It's too damn late because Raw's too damn long. All right, I think we all got that. Also, SmackDown's reviews are going to be on Fridays because it's at 10 o'clock because it ends at 10. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty early enough for me. And then, of course, we got the pay-per-view reviews in between. And the reviews themselves are going to be maybe close to 45 minutes to an hour because reality-wise, I'm not going to sit here for 4 hours because, you know, that'd just be as long as Monday Night Raw now. So, you know, I'm not going to do that to you guys. I know that you guys got a lot of stuff on your plate. I'm not going to force myself upon you, all right? Not gonna happen. That's just gross. Okay, just I hope you all just enjoy yourselves. And by the way, just want to let everybody know, Rey's a bad fodder. Yes, Rey Mysterio is still a bad fodder, as Finn Balor likes to call him. He's a bad fodder. So the basic premise of Raw this week is Dominic Mysterio is now officially a heel because Rey Mysterio is a bad fodder. Basically, the whole thing that happened was at Clash of the Castle on Saturday. If you haven't seen the show, go ahead and do so. I mean, Clash of the Castle was a fun pay-per-view, even though it ended with Drew McIntyre just losing a championship match and then just doing a whole sing-along. But one of the bigger highlights of the show was Dominic Mysterio turning heel and, siding with Judgment Day because he's now going to be Dom. Get it? Because he's Dominic Mysterio and Rhea just dominates him every single time. I mean, I think he just likes it. I think he's a glutton for punishment, I guess you could say. So that's the basic premise of really the entire night. As far as the rest of the show went, oh man, it was very boring and underwhelming, and not a lot of major stuff happened except for one massive thing, and that was, of course, Dexter Lumis laying down underneath the ring. Yep, that's exactly what happened. No, I'm kidding. Braun Strowman is back. Yeah, remember that guy? Former Universal Champion, former Control Your Narrative person? That's exactly who Braun Strowman is. And we'll get into all that and more once we kind of go more so into the show. I'll kind of give my thoughts on the whole Braun Strowman thing as well as the rest of the card. So basically throughout the show you had a bunch of recaps from Clash of the Castle, still images, and also the whole news reports about, oh, Clash of the Castle was the most, successful pay-per-view, and it's the first UK stadium show in forever, and you feel great because again the UK crowds were so amazing, and plus excuse me, not Walter, Gunther and Sheamus literally tore the house down on Saturday, and it's Clash of the Castle was good. Raw, not so much. We kicked the show off with Edge kind of coming out, not as big of a pop as he got in Wales, but you know what? He still got a pretty decent sized pop here. Edge basically was talking about how, Dominic, I don't know why you kicked my ass or why you kicked me in the dick, because that's pretty much exactly what happened. Edge just literally kicked him right in the penis. And, he clotheslined his own fodder because Rey Mysterio's a bad fodder. And so he's like, Dom, I'm going to kick your ass. We used to be, I was your uncle, kind of, but now I'm going to be Rey Mysterio's new son. Well, that's not actually what happened. It was just more like I'm going to kick your ass because you're old enough now to take an ass whooping. But then Rey Mysterio came out because he's trying to be a good fodder, but in reality, he's a bad fodder. And so Rey is like, no, Edge, please don't do it. He's my son. Please don't hurt my son. And then Edge is like, Rey, I have to beat up your son because you're a bad fodder. And so basically they have their little back and forth, and then Judgment Day come out. And Rhea actually comes out first. She's like, Rey, I made Dom into a man, and we all know why we all know how she made Dom into a man. She domed him. And now Dominic is now officially a Dom. And just like Shadowhunter said on Saturday, he's going to look like Karrion Kross when he came up from the main roster. That's who Dominic Mysterio is going to look like in the next couple of weeks, thanks to Rhea Ripley. Damn her! And so Dominic comes out and he's like so blank. He's like ice cold stare. He's walking down to the ring. Ray's trying to talk to him. He's like, son, Dominique, please don't do this, Dominique. I'm your poppy. Don't do this, Dominique. And then like Dominic's just not looking at him. Like he's just staring at Edge with just this ice cold look. And then he's like, Dominique, look at me, Dominique. Dominique, please, I'm your father. Please. And so, but unfortunately, nothing he does really got through to Dominic. So guess what? Rey Mysterio just walks away, and then Edge tries to beat Dominic's ass, only for Judgment Day to beat Edge's ass. And then so realistically, no, actually, let me backtrack for a second. Dominic Mysterio was just a distraction at first because that Damian Priest and Finn Balor come out and they jump him. But just when you thought Edge was going to get the upper hand and hit the execution on Finn Balor, no. Dominic Mysterio chop blocks Edge's knee right from under him. And actually before that, Rey Mysterio comes back out, but then Dominic pushes Rey into Rhea, and then Rhea rams Rey into the steel steps. And then, after all that, Edge is getting his leg broke. Finn Balor hits the coup de grace onto a steel chair because they brought in a steel chair, and they mollywop Edge's leg to a point where it's crisp. Nothing. The bones are broken, shattered right into dust, powder, all of the above. Because, Judgment Day just hates Edge for some reason. Even though he created Judgment Day are like, nah, fam, we gotta kick your ass now. How ungrateful the Judgment Day are, I guess. And not gonna lie, this segment of the show was easily one of the more entertaining moments of the show, to tell you the truth. So after that whole thing, Rey Mysterio was like, I want to face one member of the Judgment Day because I will not touch my son Dominic. He is my blood. Dominic is my son. And so it's then revealed that Damian Priest is going to face Rey Mysterio later in the night. So we then cut to a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team #1 Contenders match to face the Usos for the Undisputed Tag Team Championship. And listen to the names here. I'm pretty sure some of you are going to be like, oh, God, we all know where this is going because of who's in the match. We have New Day, because, of course, you got to have the New Day here, even though they're on SmackDown. Although I actually don't mind this since the tag team divisions are pretty much unified at this point. Might as well just bring the entire tag division together. Why not? You have the Street Profits. It's like they haven't had enough opportunities. Then you have Los Lotharios. Okay, I guess. Why not? And then you have Alpha Academy, which I gotta say though here and now, Chad Gable is a treasure. A thank you. Sorry, that I just tried to do my Chad Gable impression. I'm sorry. No, shoosh, shoosh. I don't want to hear it. Shoosh. I can hear you all being like, "Oh, Austin, your impression of Chad Gable's bad." Well, you know what? Sheesh, please. The tag team match itself was pretty good, I would say. It was a pretty fun Fatal 4-Way tag match. There was at one point early on in the match where I believe one of the heels like tagged in Xavier Woods while Kofi Kingston was still in the match. And so Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, they're like, oh, well, I guess we're going to have to face off against each other now. They're about to lock up, and then next thing you know, finger poke a doob spot, and then just as Kofi was going to pin Xavier Woods, everyone's like, oh, shit, no, fuck this. We ain't do no. Absolutely not. So they're all basically beating up each other, a bunch of really cool spots. I think like at one point the Street Profits do like this really cool pounce into a belly to back suplex, which actually looked into a side suplex, which looked really nice, looked very smooth. Like basically a bunch of all these high flying spots, all like the flippy dippy stuff, kind of the typical, stuff you would see in like a very fast paced match as like this. And just when you thought Chad Gable was going to get the win with a diploma, out comes the man who's about to control the entire narrative of WWE, Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman's back after being released last year, even though he main evented or was one of the big main eventers at the time. Braun Strowman came back and basically killed the entire tag division. At one point, tried hitting the choo-choo train, where he just runs around the ring and then he does like a little like shoulder tackle, but then they do a big spot. He kind of fell, but he did put one of the Street Profits through the announce table and then basically kicked the shit out of everybody. He had a choke slam on, I think it was Angel Garza. I think it was either Angel Garza or it was Humberto, I believe his name is. So, the return itself was fine, and I kind of want to address this because I've been seeing a lot of people be like, "Oh, Braun Strowman sucks. Oh, we hate him. He's a piece of shit." And a lot of that stems from not only the control your narrative things, but Braun also said some stuff about the independent scene where, how, I guess from what I'm to understand, somebody did a GoFundMe thing, and then Braun just was like, oh, well, if you're going to do a GoFundMe thing, then you have to do then maybe you should change professions. It kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and I get it. And trust me when I tell you that a lot of what Braun Strowman has, maybe have said and done, I know that could rub people the wrong way, and it certainly rubbed me the wrong way in certain aspects. Because because you should always support the indie guys. Because realistically, the indie guys are the reason why wrestling is here today still. Because the indies help build future talent, and it helps talent grow. So the indies are very much important, and Braun Strowman, I don't know if he really got that at the time. Maybe he gets it now, but even then, it was a very bad take from him. But that also being said, I know I've seen a lot of people also say that Braun Strowman, hit his glass ceiling. And to that, I could say, well, yeah, he kind of has reached his glass ceiling, because let's be honest. I mean, what is Braun Strowman really good for? And that is destroying things and beating people up. Eventually, that's going to grow old. Now, that was under the Vince McMahon regime. I'm hoping under Triple H, Braun's going to at least do some cool things, hopefully. I mean, I know he's not a in-ring general, and he's not an in-ring, I guess you could say he's not an in-ring instant classic. He's not the best in the ring. I think he's fine. I think he's like, it's kind of one of those things where if you're a talent and you're not going to have the best match with everybody, and that happens. I mean, not everybody's going to be like an AJ Styles or a Shawn Michaels who's going to be able to wrestle anybody, basically a broomstick, and then manage to get them over. Like, Braun is one of those guys that needs somebody to compliment him to really be able to be an outstanding talent. So I'm hoping that Triple H sees that and puts him in a program with somebody that will compliment him. if that makes any sense. I'm willing to give Braun a chance. I'll be here. I'll be honest. I'll say I'm willing to give him a chance. But that being said, I think there's definitely a lot of work to be done to kind of repackage him as well, especially after the whole train thing, because the train was kind of dumb. But hopefully under the Triple H thing, Braun may be handled better. That's really all I have to say about the whole Braun Strowman thing. I know that didn't really go as long as I know some people may have been wanting, but you know what? In whole honesty, I'm willing to give it a chance, and I'm just gonna take it one day at a time with Braun. So also another big thing that's been happening over the last couple of weeks, and that is the Miz, Ciampa, and Dexter Lumis. Which, by the way, Ciampa got his first name back, so Tommaso Ciampa is officially back. Thank the Lord. So the main event tonight of Monday Night Raw was for the United States Championship, which, by the way, love to see the mid-card titles back actually doing something, because Bobby Lashley's been killing it, with the U.S. title with matches against Ciampa and AJ Styles. Hopefully at Survivor Series, if they're still doing the brand versus brand thing, to do Gunther and Bobby Lashley at Survivor Series, because that match would be awesome, especially since the Sheamus match was really good. So moving back to the Miz and Dexter Lumis thing, this all started ever since Dexter Lumis came back. He was re-signed, and he's become a criminal now. That's his gimmick. He has caused car accidents. He's basically kidnapped people, such as the Miz. He is basically hurt people, and you know what? To top it off, breaking and entering from what we've seen last Monday, where Dexter Lumis was in the car that the Miz was in. He was driving. So yeah, Dexter Lumis is just committing crimes. He's a felony. He commits felonies now. That's his gimmick. So the basic premise with this is that it's a steel cage match for the U.S. title because Miz doesn't want Dexter Lumis to get involved, and I'll get more into the steel cage match a little bit later on in the review. But the God, I forgot her name, but she's like the new I guess field correspondent, I guess I would call her. I just call them announcers, but she's like going up to Miz, she's like, Miz, well, what's been going on with Dexter Lumis lately? And Miz is like, I don't want to talk about it because my balls are massive. Because that's his new thing now. He says his balls are massive. I don't know why. I don't know why that's even. I don't know how that got over, but okay, I guess Miz got his balls over. That shows you how good the Miz is. I mean, if he's willing to get his balls over, imagine what he could do with like talent, with like a really good talent, like a really good program. I think he could do it. He was able to put his balls over. That you got him over. So speaking of well, I was gonna say speaking of balls, no. So the next match after the whole Fatal 4-Way disaster, I guess you could say, Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah, the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, took on Doudrop and Nikki ASH, who just came off a big loss against the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions at NXT Worlds Collide. Hang on, I gotta look up who the NXT Women's Tag Team Champions are, because I personally don't really watch NXT anymore due to the whole NXT 2.0 thing. But you know what? Caden Carter and Caden Carter and Katana Chance. Oh gosh, I apologize if I butchered you guys' names, because I don't watch NXT anymore because of the NXT 2.0 thing. I did check out a little bit of Worlds Collide, but that's because I wanted to see the Carmelo Hayes Ricochet match, which was awesome too, by the way. So to kind of give you a little bit backstory on the Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah thing. So last Monday there was the finals for the Women's Tag Team Championships, and because of the against Damage Control, which is a group I'll talk about later on in the review, they took on Aaliyah and Raquel, and so Aaliyah and Raquel won the tag belts due to interference, because that kind of built up to the 6-women tag match at Clash of the Castle, which was between Damage Control, Bianca, Alexa, and Asuka. As far as them winning the tag belts, personally, it makes no sense. I would have rathered Damage Control to win, because sometimes the more obvious choice is the right choice. I understand you want to build a story. I understand you want to, I guess, get some heat on the match. But at sometimes the right choice is the obvious choice. And that is putting the belts on Dakota Kai and Io Sky was probably the better move in the long term because, in whole honesty, those women tag belts really need to be uplifted like urgently because they've just been kind of on the back burner for so long that Dakota Kai and Io Sky could have held the belts. They could have had some good matches. Hold on to them for a good while, and then maybe drop them to a team later down the line. But I mean, that loss nearly killed their momentum, and I'm glad to see that they were able to get it back. As far as the match here goes, it was fine, I guess. It was very short. It wasn't anything too crazy. Like Nikki ASH and Dewdrop, they dominated Aaliyah throughout the match. Like at one point, like Aaliyah's fine. I mean, she tries. I mean everybody tries. I mean, she's fine. I mean, she does hit like a tilt not a tilt-a-whirl, but she hits the back like a little backbreaker where she turns the opponent around and then she gets beat up for a while, and then next thing you know, Raquel gets the tag, and then she gets the hot tag. She's doing the huge comeback, and then next thing you know, she hits the one-arm power bomb on Dewdrop, which looked good. Not gonna lie, it did, and they win. Which, to be fair, it does make the tag champs look good, and it gives them a little bit of momentum, and this does kind of give them some momentum going into their next week's Raw for the Women's Tag Team Championships in a rematch between Damage Control and Raquel and Aaliyah. The match, like I said, wasn't bad. It was just kind of an okay tag match at best. It was just more so to kind of get the new tag champs over. And later on in the show, actually, you see, I guess in the background, Nikki ASH just throwing the mask at Dewdrop. So is it possible that she's actually dropping the gimmick and actually going to be Nikki Cross again? We're just going to have to wait and find out because to me, the Nikki ASH thing, it didn't work. I mean, I understand they were trying to kind of capitalize on the whole, hey, she's a superhero thing. Like, because at the time, they were still under the Vince stuff and they were like, oh, well, a superhero gimmick. Well, I like it. That's such good shit. The superhero gimmick thing just didn't work. I mean, it felt really silly, very goofy compared to what Nikki Cross was doing beforehand. And I mean, sure, she got a women's championship out of it, but that was only to be a transitional run for Charlotte, and then she's just been in throwaway tag teams ever since. I mean, she did win the women's tag belt with Rhea Ripley, but even then, it wasn't anything impressive. So yeah, I'm hoping Nikki ASH's gimmick, the superhero thing, is done, and we can go back to Nikki Cross or something later down the line. So later on in the show, Austin Theory comes out, and of course, he got his ass kicked by Tyson Fury at Clash of the Castle, of course, where he got fucking punched in the face, and I guess it hurt his jaw so bad that he literally was like, all right, at Crown Jewel was a success. He's like, I beat Clash of the Castle because I don't know if that was an actual mistake or not, but he just like sold like the jaw, like you could tell he's like selling the punch to the face because he got punched by a boxer, and of course they have to establish, oh, this man literally got his bell rung. So I mean, if it was intentional, that was actually pretty smart. If not, well, that was actually a pretty clever way to cover up the botch. And so Austin Theory's out there. He's like talking about, oh, I'm going to be the next, undisputed champion, and how, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre are lucky that I didn't cash in because I would have been the champion. And then out comes Kevin Owens, which I got to say, I've always been a big Kevin Owens fan ever since he debuted in 2015 because he beat up John Cena, and then he beat John Cena. And actually, the first time I was really able to watch Raw when I got cable was when Kevin Owens won the Universal Championship. And to be quite honest, that's kind of stuck with me ever since. So Kevin Owens has been one of my favorites. And kind of seeing his old work from NXT, it was really cool to see him bring back, the NXT Kevin Owens shirt, with like the duct tape pattern, and, becoming the prize fighter again and bringing back an apron powerbomb and the pop-up powerbomb instead of the sit-out pop-up powerbomb. Because realistically, I think just just him doing the pop-up powerbomb just looks brutal instead of the sit-out powerbomb, which it just looks a little not necessarily silly, but just doesn't look as intense, or it doesn't hurt as much. But Kevin Owens comes out, he's like, Theory, you're kind of an overconfident piece of shit. Let's be real here. I mean, you've gotten way too cocky. You're way too arrogant. You're over your own head. You're lucky that you didn't cash in, because then if you did, then Roman or Drew would have literally put you like they would have ruined your chance. And Theory's like, I don't know what you're talking about, and you need to shut up. And then Kevin Owens is like, well, it doesn't matter what happens now, because I'm going to be, the next one in line, because Roman Reigns knows that a few months, like 12 months ago, I should have been the Universal Champion, but if it wasn't for Jey Uso and the Bloodline, he would have been the champion. And so, and then next thing you know, he's like going off about how, a ref's going to run down, and, oh, well, someone's going to say, oh, well, we're going to fight. And he's like, oh, that's me. And then they have a match. As far as matches go, I mean, it was good. I mean, it wasn't anything, again, to write home about. Like, none of the matches on this show were really anything to write home about. Like, they weren't bad, but compared to, like, stuff from Clash of the Castle, Worlds Collide, and even All Out, it was just, I think the fatigue, you can tell, like, some of the fans really started to feel that, especially when your show is completely 3 hours long. Because let me be real here. When your show is 3 hours long, and especially after like an entire week of like so much wrestling, I think fans were starting to feel a little burnout at that point. That being said, the match was good. I really like that Kevin Owens has brought back the Fisherman Buster from the top rope. Because let me tell you, the Fisherman Buster just looks so good. It's kind of the basics match. Kevin Owens is dominant for the first good portion of the matchup. Then Austin Theory, kind of blindsides him and then comes back. I really like when he does the drop kick, where he comes back into the ring and does the drop kick. That always looks pretty cool. Kevin Owens comes back into the matchup. He starts kicking the shit out of Theory again, but then Theory comes back into the match. And he at one point he takes Kevin Owens and he takes his head, and then he bounces the back of his head on the back of the steel steps, which that looked brutal. So yeah, they went back and forth, and of course the Fisherman Buster off the top rope. After a pretty back and forth matchup, I guess you could say, and then Kevin Owens hits the pop-up powerbomb into the stunner, and then he wins the match. Again, gets Kevin Owens a little bit more momentum, as well as Austin Theory's not really going to be affected by this, because he's still Mr. Money in the Bank, and he still has the chance to become the undisputed champion. And as far as Theory is concerned, because I never really talked about Theory either, I think Theory is great. I think he's got a great look to him. I think he's good in the ring. I think he's pretty solid on the mic. The problem is, I don't think he's ready to be world champion yet. Mainly because I want to see him grow a little bit more until and then when he wins the world title, because I'd rather him win it as a babyface, because he's a good looking kid, I mean, Austin Theory is going to be a big star. I have no doubt about it, but I think the problem is they kind of rushed the Money in the Bank contract on him, and in whole honesty, I kind of want Theory to fail his cash-in, and so that way you could kind of humble him a little bit, and then maybe kind of transition him more to a babyface, give him either a lengthy mid-card title run, or give him give him something, I guess you could say, and then have him come back later down the line and win the world championship. So that way, when Theory wins it, everyone's like, oh yeah, Theory wins it, rather than, Theory wins it. So that's just something to think about, I guess you could say. What else happened on the show? Yeah, actually later on during the show, in the aftermath of the Menace himself, Seth Rollins and Riddle's matchup, which was another good match at Clash of the Castle, Riddle's you could tell Riddle's heartbroken. He's like, look, Seth got in my head, I fucked up, and, I want a rematch. But then Seth Rollins comes in, he's like, ha, 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 I ain't giving Riddle a rematch, ha, ha, ha. I'm going to become the next undisputed champion, and Riddle or nobody's going to stop me, ha, ha, ha. Because he's a menace to society. So obviously this is gonna build further into another Riddle Seth match, maybe on Raw or the next pay-per-view. I don't know, but we're gonna wait and see. I'm actually kind of curious to how they're gonna continue this feud. Hope maybe at Extreme Rules and a street fight, or even just any kind of stipulation match with no DQs. Probably Extreme Rules because that would just be fun and lovely to see. Next up, oh yeah, the Damian Priest Rey Mysterio match. Um, so yeah, Damian Priest comes in because Rey Mysterio is a bad fodder. Um, the match between Rey and Damian Priest kind of went as you would expect because Damian Priest is a very big guy and Rey Mysterio is a little guy. So Damian Priest basically kicks the shit out of Rey Mysterio for a good portion of the matchup. In fact, I'd say most of the matchup was Damian Priest, kind of dominating the match. But Rey Mysterio would always get out of it because he's the wily veteran and he can outspeed and just outpace Damian Priest. And I gotta say, Damian Priest's theme with it's kind of like an altered version of his NXT theme, but it's a bit more slowed down and a bit more menacing. So Damian Priest and Rey Mysterio are going back and forth, and then Dominic Mysterio and the Judgment Day come out, and then they're like, they're gonna, cause some shenanigans to help Damian Priest win, and of course that happens because Rey tries to hit the 619 on multiple occasions, but then Damian Priest just comes in and just stops him. But then as soon as you see Rey Mysterio go for the 619 again, of course Judgment Day interfere, which caused Damian Priest to hit the South of Heaven to win the match. Again, another decent match. Again, nothing that would really scream, "Oh, this is great." But it was just okay. It was another solid match. It was just, it was fine. And this match was really used to help build towards next week's Raw, where apparently Dominic Mysterio is going to show his fada how to kick some ass because he's going to face Edge next week. So as you could probably tell from just the way I'm talking about this show is obviously used to build up to next week's Raw, which you could kind of expect because of the whole women's tag team thing, and now Dominic taking on Edge. Because remember, long-term storytelling is always good, for the most part, anyway. Johnny Gargano, who just recently came back, which again, you love to see Gargano. I mean, I'm a big Gargano guy, so it was cool to see him back. And he's like, what, I'm gonna come back. I'm coming back to the ring next week again, setting up next week's Raw, Johnny Gargano and the women's tag team thing and the Dominic Edge thing. That show already sounds a lot better than this show because this show was just used to kind of be like a kind of like filler to kind of keep, just kind of being like a bridge between the pay-per-view and, everything moving forward. It kind of reminds me of, the old NXT days, when they were on the network, and usually after a takeover, they would have like one show after takeover that would kind of just be like a filler episode. That's kind of what this Raw feels like. It just felt like very filler-ish. Despite the Braun Strowman return, it was just kind of meh. But Johnny Gargano announces he's coming back next week. That should be great. And then Theory comes out. He's like, oh, well, Johnny, shut up. You're a washed-up has-been kind of thing. You say you want to live out your dreams. Well, I've already lived them. And Johnny's like, dude, are you all right? You're crazy, man. I think you just having a bad day, very bad day. Oh yeah. So Damage Control come out, and we're kind of nearing the end of the show here, but Damage Control come out and they're like, hey, yeah, so Bayley herself said, well, I beat Bianca Belair. I'm the yardstick, basically. And then Dakota Kai and Io Sky are kind of just talking shit about the women's tag champs, about how Dakota wasn't the legal woman pinned. So technically, Raquel and Aaliyah did not actually win the match. So that, of course, is just building up a little bit more heat towards their women's tag match next week. And then Bianca Belair comes out and she's like, Bayley, you didn't beat me fairly because it took 3 people to beat me. And Bayley's like, wow, how just like insecure are you? The fact that you can't tolerate the fact that I won the match and I beat you fair and square, but yet because you lost, you want your win back. That's just so insecure of you. And she even brings up, when I do win this title, I'll find a way to win the belt, but it's going to be on my terms. And that was just the basic interaction between them. It was just more like it, again, to further set up the match between Bianca and Bayley, which hopefully Bayley beats Bianca because let's face it, I think, to be quite honest, Damage Control could really use a big win like that uh to kind of help, I guess, establish the group as a big deal. Even though I guess you could say they're already a big deal, it would just be better for them as a whole to kind of establish them as a big trio, especially when you win all the belts, I guess you could say. That being said, we are going to talk about the main event of Monday Night Raw. I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, this review is short." That's kind of the purpose of these streams, are that they're not going to be long. They're just going to be like 45 minutes to an hour, just like talking about the shows themselves, because the shows are too long, and it's better to just get a condensed version. And if you want to watch it, go watch for yourself on YouTube. That's kind of how that's how I bring it. All right. So let's talk about the, I guess, last match of the show, and that is the steel cage match for the United States Championship between Bobby Lashley and The Miz. Again, like I said earlier, the matchup was just made a steel cage match, so Dexter Lumis didn't kick the shit out of The Miz again. And so I really liked the actual beginning of the match where Miz and Ciampa double team Lashley throughout, at the beginning, where they not necessarily break his arm, but like they hurt his arm, so that way Lashley couldn't put in the hurt lock again, and Lashley would be handicapped essentially. So he's not 100%. But then, the Miz and Lashley, they're fighting in the cage. They're using the cage to their advantage. Like, Miz is cheating throughout the match, enlisting Ciampa to help him, and Ciampa, is just interfering throughout the match, kind of like not having Lashley. He's not necessarily facing just the Miz. It's basically a handicap match. But so Bobby Lashley comes back eventually, and so he does his big comeback, and but again, just keeps getting like Ciampa and Miz just keep outsmarting him, and finally, like, Miz hits the Skull Crush finale at some point, but then Lashley kicks out. Miz is like, "All right, fuck this. I gotta end this match here." So these guys are like going back and forth a little bit. Lashley tries to hit a spear, but then hits into the cage. Miz is trying to get out, but then next thing you know, you see something that I would call iconic and really, really fun. And that was the Miz just laying down. Not the Miz, but Dexter Lumis was underneath the ring the entire time. He's like laying there. And so you see Dexter Lumis just like stare down at. He's just like looking up at the Miz as Miz staring down. And Miz kind of has a choice here. Do you like take the loss here? Do you take the win but risk getting kidnapped by Dexter Lumis again? I mean, that's a very tough choice. But the Miz is like, no, fuck this. I can't do it. No. And actually earlier on, so that way Ciampa, you figure out, well, what happened to the finish. So Ciampa tries to interfere, and like he's trying to hit Lashley with the steel cage door as Bobby Lashley's trying to escape. And throughout the match, Ciampa's just being a nuisance. You know what I mean? Like, he's like taking a steel chair, he's like hitting like the steel cage wall, so that way, Bobby Lashley can't escape the steel cage. But the finish, Bobby Lashley then just takes the steel cage door and just like rams it into Ciampa's face, and of course this leads to Ciampa being knocked out. Dexter Lumis is kind of out in the just underneath the ring. Miz goes back in. Lashley hits the spear, and Bobby Lashley retains the United States Championship. I'm glad that the U.S. title main evented the show, but it was clear that there was a bigger story in play, and that was Dexter Lumis, is laying underneath the ring and distracting Miz, and that kind of builds the Miz and Dexter Lumis feud a little bit even more further. And then, of course, the end of the show, Dexter Lumis goes into the cage. Miz tries to escape, but then Bobby Lashley just shuts the cage door on him, and Dexter Lumis just chokes out Miz to close out Monday Night Raw. It was it was a solid match. It wasn't anything, again, that would be necessarily too crazy. I would say it was just a standard cage match that didn't necessarily blow anything out of the water, but it was fine. Like, it did its job. It furthered the story between Dexter Loomis and The Miz, but also kind of gives another solid match of the reign of the almighty Bobby Lashley. That being said, to kind of give my final overview here, because because I'm really done with the review at this point. Like I got a few minutes. If I missed anything, I'll probably come back to it on Friday. But to sum up my thoughts, this Raw was okay. It didn't really blow anything out of the water. It was just more so, it felt more like a filler-ish Raw that was used to build up to next week's show, and that's fine. But the problem is, it's 3 hours long. And when you're doing a 3 hour long filler episode, you're not necessarily, it's not fun. In fact, I'd argue the show could get really boring, and that's what happened. It was 3 hours too long. It was very boring, too much filler, and well, I have no problem with long-term storytelling. In fact, that's one of the things that I actually prefer about Triple H's Raws. Is like, I'd rather take a bad and pretty lackluster Triple H Raw over a bad Vince Raw, because a bad Vince Raw was bad. Like, it was just virtually unwatchable. Like, this Raw here was watchable, and it's like, you could skip this one and be like, oh, nothing happened. But it does kind of further build up in later storylines, and this episode was just more so to kind of be like a, not necessarily a reset, but kind of, it's going to start the build to the next pay-per-view, which is going to be Extreme Rules. With that being said, I would say the show itself was fine. Like I said, you had some solid matches here and there. You had a return that I wouldn't say was shocking because everybody knew it beforehand, but you also had a pretty solid show overall. It's not perfect. It was very slow, but I'd rather take a Raw like this over a bad Vince Raw where, people are getting needles jabbed in their asses, and in general, just a pretty okay match. Like, you got some pretty solid matches, a lot of wrestling here, but that's not a bad thing. I think next week's Raw is going to be a lot better. This Raw was just more like it was okay. Wasn't anything, didn't ruin anything, doesn't hurt anything. It was just okay. I hope to see what's going to happen in terms of how Triple H is going to do Braun Strowman. I think the Judgment Day and Kevin Owens are slowly becoming highlights, especially the fact that Ray's a bad FAHDER. And I'm kind of curious to see if Damage Control are going to avenge their loss last week and become the women's tag team champions. I'd kind of interested to see how that's going to go. And also, I'm kind of intrigued to see how realistic. I'm just kind of intrigued overall how Triple H is going to go into Extreme Rules, because I can kind of predict where they're going to go eventually, but it's just the way that we're going to get there is going to be very interesting. And that's what you have to like about Triple H, is that he's taking what worked in NXT a little bit and just putting it here. I mean, it still has a long ways to go before it gets really good, but I would say it's not bad. I definitely say Triple H has done a better job overall. If people who say, all these things that Triple H has done, like the whole Damage Control losing last week and Braun Strowman, though they're Triple H L's, I always say, don't judge until we see the full story kind of thing, because you never know. In fact, I would argue that, until we know the full context of where he's going to go, let's wait until we know more, I guess you could say. So with that being said, though, guys, I'm going to get to the chat here. Ninjoid says, oh, shit. Laugh my ass up. What's up, Ninjoid? Glad to see you were here. Sorry I didn't get to your comments, but I was reviewing the show. Jaxlaw, what's up, Jaxlaw? It's been a while. The drama we make to stave off boredom. What drama? That sounds interesting. Jaxlaw also comes in, like the icon, I too use a shovel. Oh, you use a shovel like Triple H, huh? Let me tell you, Triple H likes to use shovels, but not for digging things. He uses them to bury. He likes to bury his opposition because he's Triple H. What's up? This song? It's just some fun stuff. Yeah, with that being said, though, guys, we are going to wrap this up because, like I said, they're going to be like 45 minutes to an hour. Just follow me on Twitter. Follow me on my socials, and check me out on Friday for the SmackDown review. That'll be interesting to see how everything goes. And yeah, guys, that about does it. Thank you guys for watching. This is the Osinator signing out. Peace.
That's awesome.